Today, I'm really excited to kick off the first of what I hope will be many player-driven workshops. The series is all about creating space for industry veterans to share what actually works, the strategies, the mistakes, the hard-won lessons, and the frameworks they use when real problems hit production. So often in games, we learn through experience, but we don't always get the chance to slow down and unpack how we think about problems, how we make decisions, and how we evolve our craft. That's what this platform is meant to be, a place to learn from each other and spark new approaches. And we're starting off with a topic that's near and dear to my heart, player experience. Early in my career, I worked as a tier 1 support rep, and that role gives you a front row seat to everything. The good, the bad, the way players actually behave, the way where systems may break, what frustrates people at 2 a.m., and what turns a bad day into a loyal player. Today, that world is changing fast. From automation to AI, new tooling, new expectations, and new pressures to scale. Figuring out how to deliver great human interactions while responsibly using new technology is one of the most interesting challenges in the industry right now. So today we're going to talk about getting started. How did both of our guests get started in the industry? AI and player support. What is helpful and what is just hype that we keep hearing in the marketplace? How do you turn community signals into product decisions? How do you scale without burning out? And where the CX creates a real advantage in 2026. We're going to start by rewinding a bit. I would love for each of you to share how you actually got into player support and the player experience. What were the first tools or workflows you relied on? What did you get wrong early? And what ended up helping you build real leverage and credibility inside the studio itself? And let's start with Connor.
So I first got started in CX in 2016, I want to say. I had just landed in Ireland after escaping from the Brexit referendum, and I was taking any job that I could get my hands on, and so there was a junior customer support position available, and I got involved there. It was a very small team, only 6 people, and my boss unexpectedly quit, and I ended up in charge of those 6 people. Then there was a game was released. That game we worked on, that game suddenly became one of the biggest in the world. So my team went from 6 people to around 170, with me just kind of riding that wave and learning as I went. We used Salesforce Desk back in the beginning. I'm very fond of this particular software. I have fond memories of it. And then we moved over to HelpShift when things needed to scale a bit better, and things got very exciting. Then I moved on from there. I worked for a Brazilian studio for a bit, and then I ended up here when I moved to Germany in 2021.
Oh boy, I actually started with 2 offers in hand. One was for junior QA, and the other one was for junior customer support. So I have an engineering degree, so QA made a lot of sense on paper, but I always loved communication and helping people and genuinely enjoyed it. So I don't know, support fitted my personality better. So this is how I started my career path. And the first company I worked with was an app builder. So anyone could build an app without coding experience. And we had some memorable clients from music industry, public services, and support wasn't just there to answer questions, very far from it. I ended up building application in app builders, testing them, then sorting out issues with application, then publishing them, then talking to App Store and Google Play reviewers about the problem with the application, all while maintaining communication with the client. So it was a very challenging, sometimes not very organized experience, but I'm forever grateful because I basically learned like end-to-end understanding of how mobile production works. So back in the day, we didn't really have fancy tools like we have now. We relied on good old school things like good workflow, templates, procedures, Confluence. Yeah, of course. So yeah, because of that, that forced me, because we were doing so many things manually, it actually forced me to learn a lot. And that opened lots of doors after. That's how I ended up at Easy Brain.
Where are you seeing automation and AI genuinely improve player experience today? And where do teams need to be careful about introducing risk, overconfidence, or removing too much human judgment? How do you think about augmentation versus replacement? Connor, let's start with you.
I will admit to being an AI skeptic, especially in the early days. In general, I've always been a function first kind of person. It doesn't matter too much to me that the thing is AI, that it's smart, that it's automatic. The primary thing I have to ask is, but what does it actually do? What is it actually for? Am I using this because it's got a particular brand associated with it? Am I using this because everyone else is using it? Or am I using it because it solves a problem that I have in front of me? So, a good example of the two kinds of AI function versus advertisement you might see in the CS space is we're talking roughly 20,000 ish over the course of a month in terms of tickets, by the way. I have one eye on the chat. So I do not need an AI that can send replies to players in place of agents. I have agents for that. I don't need an AI that could read a ticket and tell me how the player is feeling. I can read the ticket. What I can use an AI for is reading these 20,000 tickets, summarizing what's in them, and this can then be run by the team. And if the team sees familiarity in the summary, then we can take a little bit of faith and we can say this is probably correct. If, however, the summary says players are complaining that the music in game is too loud, it's a bad example. There is music in game. I just usually have it muted. But let's pretend there isn't, that they're complaining about features that don't exist, then maybe the AI is making something up. That can be checked by the team. But it does mean that nobody on the team, and especially not me, has to read through all of these tickets to try and put together some quantifiable feedback that we can then pass on to the developers or pass on to QA or pass on to product, whoever needs it. That's the kind of scalability that I see AI useful for, but it's not super flashy. It's not something that I could easily put in a presentation, show everyone and say, look how incredible this technology is. It does the really boring stuff for me. That's the stuff that I look for. That's the stuff that excites me about AI.
I think that idea that AI can be a full replacement is very tempting. Especially it's tempting for stakeholders, like press one button and support is done kind of things. It's actually a very wrong mental model overall, because first of all, it's almost never one-to-one replacement. Support has this 80 to 20 effect where you can automate like 80% of requests, but you still spend the most of the time on the remaining 20, because this is where the edge cases, emotional stuff, like, or just requests where product expertise is required. So AI helps with volume, and it doesn't remove complexity, right? The second thing is we should not apply the same KPIs that we apply to humans to AI. AI can close a whole bunch of tickets very fast, very efficiently. The question is the quality of this interaction. So this is where we need to be careful, because first, replies that can be overly polite but empty, or super confident but not actually leading anywhere, can make players feel very dismissed. And our personal observation that players don't actually mind interacting with AI. They just don't like the feeling of being processed. And what I mean by that is like, yes, I got my reply, but it feels like no one actually read it. the solution is so, and I just feel, processed. And this is what we're trying to avoid. So the best approach that we developed is we automate the routine, and we protect the relationship at all cost. So we are ready to scale aggressively AI where it improves efficiency, like drafting, translating, rephrasing, summaries, tagging, what Connor mentioned. This is all very helpful, and we find it extremely cool starting point if you're thinking about implementing AI into your organization. This is the safest and amazing thing you can start off with. But humans still own what they're best at, which is empathy, corner cases, emotions, and product context requests.
You both brought up really great points. And one thing you both mentioned was making the tools easier for your agents to consume large data. Again, it's whether it be a full conversation that a bot had with a player before handing it off, being able to summarize that conversation and giving it to it, understanding the sentiment behind it. And Veronica, I love what you're talking about being processed. I think that's what gives bots in general, not just AI, bots in general, a bad rap. I think a lot of people don't put thought into a human needs to still be in this loop. And I think it's process is such an interesting and good choice of word there, because that's what I was thinking about after you said it. I was like, you know what? I was just part of this. Didn't even really care about who I was. And I think no matter what, it's AI. It doesn't care who I am at the end of the day, but there's that warmth that it can have no matter what, especially if it knows the context of who that player is. That goes a really long way. And I think it's important for studios to remember, like, I can utilize these tools, but I don't want it to take away that human element that my company represents. And I think people can see through that.
I run a little bit counter to the topic, because I mean it depends player to player, right? But I believe first and foremost that players want results above all else. They want to know the ticket was read and they got an answer. If you spend more time making the player feel heard than you do solving the player's problem, there is a point of diminishing returns where the player is going to say, yes, I get it. I'm very valuable to you. You deeply appreciate me. I've been here for 2 hours. I still don't have what I bought, for example. The automations that I use, the non-AI ones, I saw in the chat, Max has mentioned automating 80% of tickets without AI, but with a small volume. I do the same, but with the volume I have, and it's wonderful. I swear by automations. And the important thing for me with these automations is that players know they are dealing with automations. They know this is a process, they follow the process, and they will either get help or they will reach a human agent in the end. Where I believe we run into real trouble is when the player thinks they're getting a person and they feel betrayed when it turns out it's ChatGPT or it's an automation.
Support and community teams sit on massive volumes of data. Connor, you talked about it when you first started at your company, how you scaled up that team a lot, and you're seeing a lot. You have tickets, reviews, Discord information, social stuff, store ratings. How do you turn all that noise into something that product teams can actually trust and act on? And what systems or habits do you use to help translate player signals into kind of those next decisions you want to make?
There's always a gap between product and support signals, almost in every organization that I worked at least. So back in the days, I used to think that maybe it's about like limited resources. Maybe it's about the lack of motivation. So why do they see those signals, but they actually don't take action on it? And with time, I just realized that it's more like a problem of like translation between departments. So we had an interesting case where a player texted our executive on LinkedIn and asking to change like a certain specific functionality. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying anyone should do that. Please don't like make it your process. But the message was so well written. The player explained exactly like what was happening. why it messed up the playing experience, why like it just breaks everything. And he even suggested a better way to do that. And that worked. We actually changed the entire functionality of the game because of that one player. And the most uncomfortable part for me, as a lead support, was that we raised this up in the past. There was a signal, but we just didn't deliver it in a decision ready way, like where we can see the clear impact, clear reasoning, clear suggestion. That what player basically did for us. So my conclusion is that the product, they don't ignore support, they just ignore untranslated feedback. And the question is, how can we translate the feedback so we don't pass the raw data and we pass like not noise, but something that they can take action on. So what we try to do now is that what that player did, we try to like send a simple short summary of what is happening, who is affected, why it matters, and a clear ask or question from the team. And that's where things started moving. And AI can be either, amazing at this or very horrible at this. AI will be the first one to say, listen, you have to like, I don't know, 20% more complaints about ads in your new release. That sounds serious. For a decision maker, that is nothing. If your business is like ours, which is like an ad-based model in the app, you're not going to switch off ads just because the number went up, right? So what we learn to do is we learn to, instead of people hate ads, and here's the number of complaints, we learn to basically translate it in people hate ads because it breaks their experience, because the ad starts in the end of the level and it feels like punishment for the players, right? So we can work with that. And if you set up automation to help you like surface this kind of, decision ready data, this is where things start get interesting.
I go back to what you said in the beginning with the messaging to the executive about a problem. I just imagine all my product friends like cringing, like you just wrecked the whole roadmap because someone came in. And not only that, if it's something you've been surfacing and no one's been listening, it's kind of, I don't want to use the word insulting, that like we've been trying to make this change and then one player comes in and just like, hey, here's this, and it all happens. And maybe it's good because it finally happened, but how do you get your voice louder? Say, hey, we tried to say this months ago. So next time we say something, how does this become more important? I think you brought up those following points. If you could take a look at the big data set and show, hey, here's the percentage of people talking about this is the type of change. Does it have the same results at the end of the day? Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes you have that executive that gets a message from someone that's like, we're going to change everything, right? And it's like, all right, well, how did we happen? But I think that's fascinating, that story. And do not message executives of companies you like, because most of the time that's not.
No, please don't.
So first, I think it's, and I'm sure the people in chat can relate to this, it's a rite of passage for every CS agent to have the executive got a player message alarm, which is shut everything down. An executive got a message from a player. We need to address this directly. And of course, it will be a player that you're familiar with. It will be a player who you have told time and time again, this feature is not available, there are no plans for this feature, or we are working on it, and so on. I'm pretty sure that's happened everywhere I've been so far. That there's some as well that actually in a previous job had called management on their like personal lines and things to the point where they needed to block the number. It got very silly. That's not what we're here to talk about, though funny as it is. Yes, Mario, me too. It's they just go direct and they don't seem to understand that that's not how workflows work. They don't sit them down and say, okay, well, I'm going to introduce you to the head of product, and the head of product is going to hear you out in the office while you're sitting there fuming and angry. doesn't work. But to keep us on topic, because I'm very easily distracted, the situation that I end up in quite frequently is generally the CS workflow isn't the same as a product workflow. They're not parallel operations. The window for changing things in product, usually you need to do things a lot earlier in product or in development than you would in CS. I can get feedback today and make a change tomorrow. If I get player feedback, it's going to be a lot harder for development to pivot onto a new course and add something because the players are asking for it, no matter who they message. And one of the ways that can really help is when CS is asked for feedback by product or by similar organizations. And again, you've probably all been in this situation. It's finally your turn to give a contribution. You say along the lines of players don't like this feature, players feel the ads are too intrusive, and they say, how many players? And you're like, oh, about 20%. And they say, show me. You're, well, I don't have the tickets in front of me. And you frantically search keywords like ads, intrusive, don't like, and you can't get the numbers up in time, and everyone's disappointed in you. Recurring nightmare, you see. I don't get a lot of sleep. And what I find the AI summaries do very much help with is being able to take those direct questions, quickly go through all the tickets you've received recently, and then present something in writing, quantifiable, that you can then hand over and say, it's not perfect, it's an AI summary, it's an estimate, but based on my own experience, this tracks, this looks accurate, this is the sort of thing that players are talking about right now.
What are some of the tools that you guys are using on a daily basis that do kind of help with this? Because, you know, you want to be able to start for free, for lack of better words, right? But there's a point where you scale and you need to start thinking about proper solutions, right? I know kind of you mentioned HelpShift at some point. Veronica, in pre-call, you were talking about Zendesk a little bit, right? So those are some of those tools that are out there. But what are some other tools that maybe people aren't even aware of that would help with these types of things?
Let me start with the obvious, AppFollow. It's been amazing so far with working with App Store and Google reviews. Just the way we work with it is it not only allows to analyze big data like after updates or throughout the years, but it also allows you to actually dive within subcategories. So let's say you want to see what are people generally talking about in this release. You press one button, it gives you very high level overview of what's going on, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the quantity of it, so you roughly understand what is the percentage of people that are happy, unhappy, and then you can actually dive in what I was talking about. So what is it about ads that they don't like? What is it about functionality that they don't like? Because we found in our experience that high level doesn't give you much. It gives you like a once in a while sync with, I don't know, your manager to basically say what's going on. But where actual gold lies is when you start like breaking this into categories, and we find it extremely helpful in our workflow. How about you, Connor?
First, I want to just give the quick disclaimer that this is entirely not connected with AppFollow supporting this segment, but I also use AppFollow a lot specifically for these AI tools because there's a lot of reviews, and whereas tickets need a solution, you don't do customer support through reviews. You don't solve issues via reviews. You either send people to support there or you need to collect data out of those reviews. That to me is the primary purpose here. So AppFollow is the one that I use for a lot of AI summaries and things like this. I do not use ChatGPT instances directly. I have through HelpShift a ChatGPT. It's a localized instance, so it's based on the FAQs, and it will give players who ask a certain question, it will read the question, it will give them an answer based on those FAQs. This step also links then to the rest of the automations in case the player doesn't like what they're being told. That's where I use it mostly, so reading, summarizing, and limited answers.
How do you grow an operation without burning out your agents or making players, most importantly, feel like they're talking to a wall? So, Connor, you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, I would open with blind spots. Whatever is a small mistake with small numbers is exponentially worse as you scale up. And one of the risks of using automation is it can take you a little while to notice if something is wrong, if the wrong info is being given. If you are doing regular QC on your agents, you will find mistakes and you can talk to the agent, you rectify the mistakes, you train, you get better. With automation, you need a player to tell you that something has gone wrong, and that player needs to be able to reach you. So if you segment users, for example, if only certain pay tiers or languages or regions can reach you, you could be having an issue that you only find out about a week down the line, or even just 12 hours down the line, and only be able to respond to slowly. One of the big issues with having automation is you can't just change it like that. It needs to be changed. The things connected to it need to be changed. You need to close off one area, open up another, redirect traffic through that new area, and you need to do all that very, very quickly in case something is burning down.
This is a very interesting point. I feel like it's more applied to AI agents. What I'm going to talk about now is mostly how we use it, is for more like AI copilot for agents, just to help the processes, to help like automation. And I would reframe it and say that the best approach probably is to treat your automation like a project. You need to basically A/B test it. I prefer to work with a couple of support managers first, and I pick, very skeptical, detail-oriented people, and I run a limited automation on certain projects, usually low risk. We collect feedback, we iterate, and then if everything's good, only after that we scale, because nothing is worse for the team when you put on double work on them, when they need to fix bad replies, when they need to like clean up generic tags, or basically undo something that was supposed to help them in the first place. For the team, it feels like babysitting a robot. And I got a lot of frustration from the team in the past when I used to just present them with automation. Now they feel that they can actually shape it and participate in it. So they don't feel like they're being punished by something new that they have to clean up after.
I think
Yeah.
that's really important that you give them the ability to basically be a chef in the kitchen with you, right? So they're going to help create this with you and have a say in it. For both of you, if there's any tools that you've implemented or strategy that you implemented that your teams or your players just said, no, we're not doing this. Like, this is not good. Like, we don't like the change here.
When I first implemented the automations that I have, a large number of players were very vocally against them. And they would share screenshots of the automations in action and say, this is awful, they've replaced all the people with bots. Now, before the bots, it was volunteers, members of the community with not a huge amount of oversight, which to me was not tenable. So what I found quite amusing about all this is these screenshots would be shared to Discords and other communities, and the players would say, look how awful this is. And other players would point out to them, you're answering it wrong. The bot has asked you this question, and you said, no, you don't need help. And so the players who complained about it effectively got pressured by the community into accepting it, which I promise I had nothing to do with, but I was very grateful for it. In general, players complain about the bots because the way they see it is it's extra steps between them and the answer that they want. And in testing the bots myself, I will have to get rid of the asking for name and email. I don't think I need it. I think that's collected by the metadata anyway. And also, when you want to very quickly submit a test ticket and you got to come up with a name and a fake email address to just test with. That's very annoying. And if it's annoying me, it's annoying the players. So that's something that I will change based on not only their feedback, but my own.
Probably just from agent perspective, that you shouldn't work with basically one automation for lots of stuff. It becomes very unspecific and very generic. So my team wasn't very happy about it until we started working with every category of requests separately. And this is where it improved a lot. Before that, agents basically had to fix mistakes and rewrite the replies that were supposed to help them to be, specific. And
what do you think will separate average support organizations from category leaders over the next couple of years? Where does the player experience become a true competitive moat for studios?
I think what's going to separate the good from the average is going to be what always has, which is whether or not you take customer support or the customer experience seriously as its own thing, or if you just see it as a cost sink to satisfy legal obligations. We have support because we have to have support, but it doesn't really do anything. We just send players through the AI and maybe they stick around, maybe they don't. That's not my belief. That's an impression of somebody who's not very good at CX.
I think in the upcoming years, we're going to see automation like as a new norm. Everyone will have it. It won't be an advantage. If everyone has it, it's not really an advantage. So what is an advantage? And that would be, for me, it would be finding a balance between, making your support faster and more effective and keeping it human still. So if there's one practical takeaway from this session from me, that would be, if you adopt AI, invest in QA for your automation. Treat it like feature released, like test it, review it, monitor it, and maybe pick the person who would be responsible for a setup, who is not only, this like pattern recognition body that is all into, categories and optimization, but also someone who like genuinely loves people, someone who enjoys helping them, because this person is going to shape how your users feel.
You mentioned the human aspect of it, and I think no matter what, you really can't remove that. And I always say these brands, not realizing they're really just brands here in the States, but we have Chewy and Zappos, which are two very big brands. And I don't know about Zappos anymore, but they really got their namesake by having great customer experiences. And no matter what, at the end of the day, you just can't replace that. I think a true great customer experience will make a customer for life. And I think people often overlook, hey, we can easily replace this function with this, but then you're going to lose that heart of what really makes your brand your brand. Anything else on this topic? Or we got one or two questions, and I know we're getting closer to time here, but any other statements on that, either of you?
Well, I think we're good to go.
Cool. So Connor, you mentioned, and this was earlier, most of the people who are skeptical about AI often become the biggest users of AI. And I was curious for you, is there like a light bulb moment that you had that when you were using AI that you realized, hey, this can work really well here, or it's better that a human handle this?
Being skeptical of AI, I didn't look at this new technology and think, wow, this is incredible. I thought it's autocorrect that goes on a bit longer. Fine, cool. It's something. I'm sure it has its uses. And then as different things were showcased to me, the ones that stood out were the things that I could envisage then being used at scale, such as the sentiment analysis idea, which has a analysis of a ticket. Says this player summarized, here's their issue, this is their mood. Not useful to me in a single ticket because I can read. So can all of the agents. They're all trained to be able to empathize with players. That's sort of the whole point. So they read it, they understand this player is upset, that's fine. We don't need an AI to help with that. But let's say we released a new feature a month ago and we want to know how people have responded. We could go through all of the tickets that we've had previously. I could assign my fairly small team of 5-6 people to say, we've got 50,000 tickets. You've got Saturday and Sunday. Go read all those tickets and tell me how players feel. No one wants to do this. It's not work that you can assign to somebody to learn something, because this is the other important thing. I don't want to offload junior tasks. I would rather train people and avoid having a skill gap in 5 years where I've got nobody who can be a viable senior because I never trained anyone from a junior. I just had AI do it. So the scalability that comes with being able to just put in a time frame, put in a number of tickets, give it a topic, and say, what do players think about this? Even if it's not 100% accurate, even if it's going to be a little bit off the mark and maybe entirely off the mark, even on occasion, it's going to give me back usable data. If it comes back and says everyone loves this idea, and I've been reading tickets and I know people don't like this idea, I know something's wrong. But if it matches up with the vibes-based investigation that we've already done, that we always do all the time whenever we're going over any kind of player interaction, then we have something quantifiable that backs up an argument we may need to make.
So it sounds like it's about being close enough and understanding what the problem is. You don't need to be perfect, as long as you capture those vibes properly and understand what's going on, right? Then you have a case in point you can make without having to skim through so many thousands of tickets.
And you know where to look then if someone looks at the AI summary and says, do you know what? I hate AI, hate it. I don't trust a single word it says. Get in there and look for those tickets. You now know where to look.
Veronica, I know you're more of a power user here of AppFollow, and there's a question in chat on if it has the ability to do kind of summarize on all languages together.
We'll start with, like, back in the days, we used to hire the members of my team. They usually speak 2 foreign languages, and that was the starting point, like the minimum basic requirements for the career at this company. And now it's also shifted, thankfully, to AppFollow in this regard, and other tools that we have now that support this. That yes, we can work with multiple foreign languages. We operate globally, and this is very important for us. I know it's not a big thing in the US. Like the companies in the US prefer to work with basically Americans. But if you target Asian market, let's say, knowing nuances, knowing how to speak their language is very important, especially if you target Japan. Japan is huge on gaming industry in the globe. So if you just translate something from English to Japanese, that would sound kind of very rude in some way. Japanese is a very indirect language, very soft language. So AI does magic on that, AppFollow included. We can analyze like different markets, including Asian markets, including other markets. We can analyze all languages, all countries basically where we are represented. We have some interesting insights, like some markets tend to rate apps generally lower because they have high expectation. This is very interesting, like cultural difference, and you can get a lot of information and valuable insight when you analyze different markets like that.
Veronica, Connor, I genuinely cannot thank you both enough for taking the time to be a part of this session. I've been really excited about this, and you've both been so open about what's working from inside your teams. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. You also could join our player-driven community at the bottom right. We have conversations like this on a hopefully daily basis where we're just sharing strategies, best practices, things we can just talk about, as well as video game stuff as well. Hopefully some of these ideas help you in your career and open your eyes to what else is possible in the player experience. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you again next month, and have a great rest of your day.